Let us discuss today India and international issues. G20 nations, India's presidency in the year 2023. India assumed charge as president of G20 nations on the 1st of December 2022. The Prime Minister Narendra Modi called it as huge opportunity. What are the G20 nations? The G20 nations constitute 20 nations, namely Argentina, Australia, Brazil, Canada, China, France, Germany, India, Indonesia, Italy, Japan, the Republic of Korea, Mexico, Russia, Saudi Arabia, South Africa, Turkey, UK, US, and the European Union. But how the G20 member nations have evolved? How the G20 nations has formed? In the year 1997 and 98, there was a crisis. There was an economic crisis throughout the world. So it made compulsory to form premier forum for international economic cooperation, meeting the governors of finance ministers and also the central banks of each nation. In the year 1999, 7 countries formed this premier forum for international economic cooperation. The countries are France, Germany, Italy, Japan, the UK, and the US. They met at Washington, D.C. Initially, the forum discussed about economics of these nations. And later, the G20 nations added to it, and they are more concentrated on the matters related to cooperation over trade, climate change, substantial development, health, agriculture, energy, and environment. So, the initial issues are to relieve from the crisis that was formed in the year 1977 and 98. And the latter, the G20 countries have made their achievements in trade agreements, in cooperation of the environmental issue, in cooperation of the climate change, etc., etc. In the year 2022, the G20 forum met at Bali, Indonesia, and the the presidential country is elected by Troika. The Troika includes the present nation and the future nation and the previous nation. These 3 countries together choose the next year's presidency of the country for G20 nations. The 3 nations are called Troika. In 2023, the Troika includes India, Indonesia, and Brazil. What are the powers of the president of G20 nations? There was no power to the president, no secretariat, and the president is chosen alternatively and and the G20 nations will get once in a year the presidency of this G20 nations. What are the challenges? The challenges between the challenges present faced by the G20 nations is India's and China's border issue, and also the war that is erupted between Russia and Ukraine. These are the main challenges now, and also due to the pandemic that was happened for the last 2.5 years, the economy of all the countries has been brought down, and the growth rate is also brought down by this pandemic. There were two parallel tracks in the G20 nations. That is, one is financial track and another is the Sherpa track. The financial track includes the finance ministers and also the central banks of each country and their governors. And the Sherpas include the emissaries of these countries. What will they do? They work together and form formalities in all the aspects of trade, in all the aspects of international relations, in all the aspects of what you call climate, in all the aspects of climate change, in all the aspects of economic change, etc. Throughout the year, they meet and form agreements between them, and this was discussed by groups of nations that are formed by the under the presidency of the G20 nations. These groups will discuss the various issues and they will present at the summit so that they will take appropriate action in this summit. Meanwhile, number of agreements, number of relationships that are maintained by these nations are worked out by these groups, and these groups also include the guest country members also, and also the United Nations Organization, International Monetary Fund, Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development.